Our ability to do something or not to do something can be the difference between success and failure. And that is basically self-discipline. Our ability to take action or not take action regardless of how we feel. So today I want to look at actually how we build self-discipline. So first of all, I think it's important to consider why this is important. Why do we want to be disciplined and why do we want to practice self-discipline? By not being disciplined and giving in to our feelings, we can quite easily find ourselves giving in to not doing something that could potentially be very beneficial to us. So for example, going for a run, eating well, meditating, going to a gym class, whatever it is, you get the idea. Because we've all been in those positions where you finish work, you've come home, you're tired, you don't really want to go out again, and you haven't been training, you haven't exercised your self-discipline, so what you end up doing is choosing the comfortable, easier side of life. And then essentially what happens is one day rolls into two days rolls into three, and so on and so on. Before you know it, you've missed a week or a month or whatever it is, and you haven't done those sessions in the gym, you haven't done your work, you haven't done the thing that you were meant to do. So by practicing and building self-discipline, then we can actually go ahead and actually do the things that we actually set out to do that potentially could be very beneficial to us. So to that end, if we're going to practice self-discipline and how we build self-discipline, I kind of use this skill. But before we dive into that, I think it's very important to understand that discipline really is built in the act of doing. It's not something that you think about or you write down or you do once or whatever. It's actually developed in the act of doing. So if it's developed in the act of doing, then it's very important that we get the challenge and the practice right. So what does that mean? Well, if we pick something that's going to be too easy for us, we won't do it. If we pick something that's too hard, then again, we will struggle to do it, and we might give up, and we have to deal with sort of like feelings of failure and things like that then. So it's actually really important that we get that balance right. So we want to be something that is challenging, but not so challenging it becomes overwhelming and impossible. And the other thing as well, it needs to be something that is repeatable, and we can actually increase it in intensity if we need to, so we can develop it over time. But most importantly, it needs to be simple, mainly because of the reasons that I spoke to before. If it's too hard, we won't do it. If it's too easy, we won't do it. So we have to get the balance right. And how we get that balance right is a bit trial and error. If you don't train discipline or you feel you aren't very disciplined, then there's going to be times when you get it right and there's going to be times where you get it wrong. So if you're doing it and you feel like you haven't got the balance right, don't be afraid to readjust it. So if we aren't having a high level of success, then don't be afraid to adjust slightly and make it so that you are winning more frequently. So let's try this. Let's start off with a morning routine. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. I know, you probably see on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook that, your morning routine is you get up and you meditate for an hour, then you journal for another hour, and then you have, you go and walk in the hills for another hour, and before you know it, you've got to get up at 4 a.m. to squeeze it all in before you head down to the office and be there for 9. We can do something around a morning routine. So I'm going to share with you what I actually do, and it's like, this will absolutely not sound like anything challenging at all. But see previous points, and really, it's being slightly outside of your comfort zone. So here's my routine. Basically, I wake up every day at 7. So to some people, that might not seem that late, and to some people, that might seem really early. It really depends on the individual. For me, I tried 6:30. I wanted to get up at 6:30, but that was a stretch too far. It was a case of, I can do it, but I can't do it consistently. It was kind of having the opposite effect of what I wanted. Basically, I was having to sort of have a bit more coffee, and I was a little bit more tired. I wasn't quite as sharp and things like that. So I opted for 7 a.m. as a good sort of medium. Now some days I've got to be up earlier, but for the most part, I'm up at 7. And the reason why I chose 7 is because it's early enough where it's a challenge, but not so early where it's detrimental to me. Now, if I wanted to seek out a greater challenge, I could potentially move that to 6:55 if I wanted to. But anyway, I digress. So my alarm goes off at 7. So basically, I have a little rule with myself. I don't sort of like reply to messages. I don't do social media or anything like that until sort of like effectively I had my breakfast. And so it works like this. So we'll get up at 7, get up, go brush my teeth, wash my face, and all that sort of stuff. And then I'll put the kettle on. Now, normally this would be a prime opportunity to basically sort of like, as the kettle's boiling, I'll sort of like scroll through my phone. And basically what I'll do is I'll just go and stand outside while I wait for the kettle to boil. And I won't use my phone, and I won't listen to anything. I'll just stand outside. And sometimes it's rainy, in which case I have to try and sort of like hide under a shelter. Sometimes it's cold. Sometimes it's really, really nice, and it's a beautiful day to be stood outside. But I do it. You know, and what it is in those moments, in those times, for like the 3, 4, 5 minutes or however long it is for the kettle to boil, then, you know, you sit and I basically sort of like just stand and not do anything. And the reason being is because if I'm waiting for it to boil and I'm just sort of like playing on my phone, distracting myself, looking at messages, email, blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff, then I find myself getting more distracted throughout the day. Whereas if I stand and just choose to do nothing, then actually I stay far more focused on the tasks throughout the day. So that little piece of discipline in the morning where I want to alleviate the boredom by looking at my phone or distracting myself with something, then I don't do it. And that's the discipline that I'm talking about. It's not that hard. I do it every day anyway because I have to. I'm getting up and going to work. I do it every day, so it's very, very simple. The barrier to entry is really very, very low. I can do it every day. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. And to stand with your own thoughts for a while, for me at least, is quite uncomfortable. So it's a challenge for me. It might not be a challenge for you, but that's the point. You have to find something that fundamentally works for you. And this skill of discipline, by practicing discipline, is widely and universally transferable. And you can transfer it to all sorts of types of skills. So maybe you want to go for a run 3 times a week, so you can use it for that. Maybe you decide that you want to get out in nature, go for a walk, go mountain biking, go hill walking, go doing whatever it is outside, and you want to do that once every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever. Then you can practice and use discipline and know that you are disciplined by making sure you do something that is for you. Likewise, if you've got a piece of work that needs to be done, you need to get back to an email or you need to get some assignments done or whatever it is, then by practicing the art of self-discipline, you become more disciplined by the act of doing and you're more likely to get it done. The important thing to remember is self-discipline is really taught through the act of doing. So once you've decided to do it, you have to do this without fail. So this goes back to my very first point. It has to be simple. The execution of it has to be a very simple, low barrier to entry, but it has to be challenging enough where it is a challenge. It can't be so easy where it's zero effort. Likewise, if it's too hard and the barrier to entry is too high, then we aren't going to do it. So it has to be simple and it has to be a little bit of a challenge. And our natural drive will naturally drive you to want to be better. We just simply will. But the only way that can work is if we teach ourselves to win. And by winning, what we have to do is make sure we succeed. So make sure you pick something that you can be successful at and then do it repeatedly every day. So anyway, let me know how you get on in the comments. Let me know what you've decided that you want to do that's going to improve your discipline. And I'll catch you guys next week.